Hello friends, welcome to Vyara Learnings. So in our discussion on Indian polity, we were studying about directive principles of state policy, that is DPSP. So I had said that in DPSP we are supposed to cover all these five topics. That is, firstly we must know the meaning of DPSP. So as the name says, DPSP, the directive principles of state policy. So these directive principles gives directions or directives for the state to make policies or lawmaking. It is providing assistance or the guidelines for the state to make the policies and laws. So in the background of DPSP we had studied that directive principles of state policy is similar to the instrument of instructions that was given under Government of India Act of 1935. So and this concept of having this directive principles of state policy was taken from Irish constitution. It was taken from Ireland. So the next is we had studied the characteristics of DPSP. So while studying the characteristics of DPSP, we studied that DPSP is non-justiciable in nature. That is directive principles. If there is some violation to directive principles, you can't go to courts and ask for the implementations of directive principles of state policy. Hence these are called as non-justiciable. And directive principles of state policy is amendable. That is, you can make changes for the directive principles of state policy. And then in DPSP we studied that it is community oriented. Whereas if we say while we studied about fundamental rights, we studied that fundamental rights are given for persons, for individuals, right? Whereas this DPSP is providing rights for communities like SC, ST, women, children, for the entire group it is speaking about. So DPSP is more of community oriented, and DPSP are like positive obligations on the state, because it is telling state what it has to do. Whereas if we see the fundamental rights, it is like prohibiting the state to do certain things, right? It is hence this fundamental right is negative obligations, whereas the DPSP is positive obligations, because it is asking state to do certain things while making the policies and laws. That is the reason it is called as positive obligations on state. That is the characteristics of DPSP. And also we studied the importance or the significance of DPSP in our constitution. This DPSP or the guidelines for the state, right? That is the reason it is very fundamental. It is very fundamental, and also fundamental in the governance of country. And also the other importance of DPSP is, see, the government can bring up the welfare schemes or the populist schemes just to gain the votes, right? So the schemes which are more of to gain votes, such schemes are populistic schemes. Whereas the schemes which truly aims at bringing the welfare of people are the welfare schemes. So if the government is bringing welfare schemes or populist schemes, so that measurement, the performance of government is measured based on this DPSP. So that is the importance of DPSP. We had already covered all these four topics in our previous video lecture. Now we shall start with the list of DPSP. That is, we shall study all the DPSPs that is present in our constitution. So firstly, in DPSP, this DPSP is classified as three types. First we have is the socialistic principles, second is Gandhian principles, and third is liberal principles. This classification whatever we are seeing, this is not seen in the constitution. That is, constitution is not classifying this DPSP as socialistic, Gandhian or liberal principles. This classification is just based on matter. It is just based on the content that it is providing for. So if that content is promoting the equality, such directive principles are classified as socialistic principles. If the content is promoting the Gandhi's ideas, then such principles are classified as Gandhian principles. And if the directive principles are promoting the freedom of communities, then such principles are called as the liberal principles. So this classification of DPSP, we must know, it is nowhere mentioned in the constitution. Its classification is just based on the content or the matter that these principles are providing for. So, and also one more thing we must know is DPSP is mentioned in part 4 of our constitution, and it is from articles 36 to 51. So already we studied article 36. It gives the definition of state. Article 37, it provides for the characteristics of DPSP. And now we must study all the DPSPs from article 38 to 51. Now, first we shall study the socialistic principles. So, these socialistic principles are nothing but these principles that promote equality. So, all those principles that promote equality are classified as the socialistic principles. So, firstly we have is Article 38. So, in socialistic principles, we shall study all the articles, that is all the directive principles. So, that is first we have is Article 38. Article 38, what it is providing for us, it says it asks the state to promote welfare of the people by securing and protecting the social order in our society. That is, it is asking for the state to promote the welfare of people. And also Article 38, it says it is asking the state to minimize the inequalities in income, eliminate the inequalities in status, facilities and opportunities amongst the individuals and group of people. It is saying minimize the inequalities in income. That is, if we see this concept of tax slab system, this tax slab system, that is, more the income, the tax also differs, right? So this concept of tax slab system, it is based on this directives itself. That is, directive principles of state policy is asking the state to minimize the inequalities in income. That is the reason we have tax slab system. And also it is saying eliminate the inequalities in status. That means it is saying there has to be equality, right? Equality in the society. And this elimination of inequalities in status, it is similar to our right to equality, right? And also in Article 17 and 18, all these articles also are aiming to promote the equality in our society, and even DPSP is also aiming for it. This second part, that is minimizing inequalities in income, eliminating inequalities in status, facilities, opportunities, this second part, it was added by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. This is very important because even earlier also previously UPSC had asked the amendments that was done to DPSP. So this amendment, that is through which amendment, so what was the content that was added is very much important. So through this amendment, that is through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, this concept was added. So this is about Article 38. Next we have is Article 39. So Article 39, it is asking state to secure all men and women adequate means of livelihood. The best scheme for this is Manrega. That is, it is providing the guaranteed employment for 100 days, right? So this by through this scheme, it is providing for the adequate means of livelihood for all men and women. So that is also that is being provided in the DPSP, that is under Article 39A. So the next we have is Article 39B. Article 39B says state to secure the ownership, control of the material resources of community are so distributed to serve the common good. Yes, the control of the material resources, especially the basic needs, has to be controlled, right? Or else if the private people are taking up the ownership of all these basic needs, then there will be a lot of competition and there will be a lot of prices also, increased prices also. In order to control this, the ownership has to be controlled, right? The government has to control the ownership of these basic needs. That is why the most of the basic needs, if you take gas, etc., there is the ownership by the government itself. So there is nationalization. There is something called as concept of nationalization because of this directive principles. Next we have is Article 39C. So Article 39 says there shall be no concentration of wealth and no means of production. That is, it has to be distributed to the common good. No concentration of wealth. So if there is concentration of wealth, then wealth will be concentrated in the hands of only few private individuals, right? That is the reason they say there has to be no concentration of wealth. Next we have is Article 39D. Article 39D says there has to be equal pay for equal work for both men and women. That is, in employment, if there is discrimination, especially to avoid that discrimination between men and women with respect to pay matters for the equal work, this directive principles is mainly aiming at that. So for this reason, we have something called as Equal Remunerations Act. So for the equal work, men and women has to be paid equally. That is what is this directive principles is providing for. And that is the reason state has also come up with the act called as Equal Remuneration Act to promote this directive principle. Next we have is Article 39E. Article 39E, it says it provides for the health strength of workers, men and women. For the health of workers, for men and women, there's a lot of schemes or if we take the Nasha Mukt Bharat, so this is aiming at eliminating the consumption of narcotic drugs, right? For this reason, there is for this directives also, there are a lot of schemes, there are a lot of policies that government has come up with. Next we have is Article 39F. Article 39F provides for the opportunities and facilities for children. For this reason, if you see the right to education, the national education policies, all these schemes were drafted because directive principles of state policy is asking the state to formulate such policies. And also for children, if we say to reduce the child abuse, also there are certain schemes, there are certain laws that are made by the state. So that is the because this all these have been made because the directive principles of state policy is directing the government to come up with such policies or laws. Next we have is Article 41. Article 41 is providing right to three things. That is, it is providing right to work, education and public assistance, for whom it is providing these rights for unemployed, old age people, sick people and disabled people. For all these people, it is providing these three rights. If we see this, take for example for old age people, the concept of pension, and there's something called as insurance. All this is given because that is mentioned in Article 41 of Directive Principles of State Policy. Next we have is Article 42. Article 42 says there shall be just and humane conditions at workplace. Workplace has to be people friendly. There has to be humane conditions. There should not be any discrimination kind of conditions at the workplace. That is what is Article 42 is providing for. And Article 42 also says there has to be maternity relief for women employees. That is the reason we have something called as Maternity Benefit Act of 1961. To implement this directive principle, state has come up with Maternity Benefit Act of 1961. That is about Article 42. Next we have is Article 43. Article 43, it says social security measures for employment like job security and issuance. There has to be job security. There has to be social security measures for the employed people. That is the reason to enhance this job security. That's the concept of EPF, the Employee Provident Fund. Next we have is Article 43A. Article 43A says there has to be secure participation of workers in management of undertakings, establishments or other organizations engaged in industry. There has to be secure participation of workers. For this reason, there is something called as Trade Unions Act. And if we see this Article 43, it has got some addition. That is Article 43A. This alphabet is added to Article 43A. 43. That means this Article 43 was amended. That is the reason it has got some attachment to it. That is alphabet has been attached to the article. If anywhere if we see some alphabet attached to the article, that means it shows that that article was amended. Even this Article 43 was amended. That is the reason we have Article 43A, and this amendment was through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. That is about Article 43A. Next we have is Article 43B. This also was amended. That is, this 43 B was added through this 97th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2011. 97th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2011 added one more provision to Article 43. That is why we have Article 43B. So what is that? Article 43B says there has to be voluntary formation, autonomous functioning and democratic control and professional management of cooperative societies. So this article is mainly speaking about the cooperative societies, the voluntary formation of cooperative societies, the autonomous function and the control has to be democratic with respect to the cooperative societies. That is about the Article 43B. So with this Article 43B, we have completed the socialistic principles. That is the principles that promote the equality. So all these principles we have covered under the socialistic principles. Next we have is the Gandhian principles. That is those principles that promote the Gandhi's ideas are classified as the Gandhian principles. So in the next video lectures, we shall study the Gandhian principles and the liberal principles, and we shall complete the DPSP. For more videos, keep watching Vyara Learnings, and also please share, subscribe Vyara Learnings. Thank you.